Welcome back to this week's edition of the MMA Oddsbreaker Fight Breakdown Show. I'm Frank Trigg. That's Nick Kalikas. This week, UFC 188. Velasquez versus Verdum in Mexico City. Can be seen on Fight Pass as always, FX, and of course the main card is on pay-per-view. I'm kind of caught between a little bit on this co-main event of Alvarez and Melendez. At first, I didn't think it was going to be a very good matchup, Nick. I thought it was going to be, more of, is Eddie really got anything left? Melendez always has a relentless pace. Can Eddie keep up with it? Then the more and more I kind of got into it, the more and more I looked into it, this is going to be a pretty competitive fight. Is it competitive from the betting standpoint?
Yeah, it sure is. Actually, it's under 2-1. It's minus 175 right now for Melendez. A comeback plus 155 on Alvarez. So betting line's competitive. This fight is a work in progress. It's been supposed to happen years ago. So a lot of fans are really looking forward to this fight. It's kind of a shame that it's happening now instead of, maybe when both guys were in their prime a little bit more. But I'm still not going to complain. These guys are still two of the best lightweights in the world. So I'm happy about it.
You look at Alvarez, he's the former Bellator lightweight champion, has 14 wins via KO, 25 victories overall with 4 defeats. He beat guys like Chandler, Aoki, and Kawajiri in his route. And then you look at Melendez, 22-4, 11 wins by KO. He's a former Strikeforce lightweight champion. So both these guys have won and are used to winning and being title holders in other organizations, trying to make that happen here. And of course, Melendez, beats up Masvidal, Thompson, and Sanchez on his way through. That great fight with Sanchez and Melendez is one for the ages. There's a fight like that you go back and forth. It's very brutal. A lot of striking. A lot of significant strikes landed by both fighters. Is that going to come into play when it's time for this fight to happen with Alvarez, who's going to try and hit Melendez as much as possible? Do you think that older fight is going to show a little bit now into this fight because of age? And like you said, neither one of these guys are in their prime anymore.
You know what? It really could, because if you look at that fight, like you're pointing out, the Sanchez fight, I mean, that was a war. Melendez, I think, really, towards the end, he just wanted to put on such a great show. He didn't care win or lose. He was just putting it out there, which you got to love and respect as a fan, especially. But that being said, I think that he took a little bit too much damage in that fight. And then again, in the Pettis fight, I know he got finished by submission, but at the same time, he absorbed some punishment in that fight as well. So Melendez has been taking some shots. I think his defense has not looked as great, not as tight recently either. So yeah, I think that punishment could definitely come back to haunt him in a fight like this, because Alvarez has a ton of power.
Ton of power and really good defense. The question is, what's going to happen with the grappling? This thing goes to the ground. Is Melendez going to be able to force his will, or is Gilbert going to get himself back to his feet or get back on top even? Because Gilbert's got a great job. Or excuse me, Eddie has a great job when he's on top. It's one of those deals where you're really trying to figure out how this thing plays on the ground. I see the game on the feet going towards Eddie, just because he seems to have taken less damage as of late. His defense seems to be a little bit tighter. Like you had mentioned, that Gilbert's defense is a little bit more wide open. Do you think that Gilbert's going to win on the ground and Eddie wins on the feet, or do you think that Gilbert can win in both places?
It's going to be close, honestly. I think that Gilbert can win in both places. He pushes a higher pace, I think, on the feet. And of course, he should have the slight wrestling edge, but Alvarez is very hard to take down and control on the ground as well. So it is very tough. I do agree. I think Alvarez could do a little bit more damage on the feet, but let's not forget, I mean, Alvarez does get clipped in fights himself. He has been rocked in the past, almost to the point, I mean, he's been knocked out officially, but usually he gets rocked in a fight. He's able to recover quickly and then does great. He finishes the fight strong. So the recovery time for Alvarez is fantastic. But the problem with that is, at times, the referees, you can't really trust them too much. And some of them are so quick to jump in and stop a fight that there's always a concern. Maybe Melendez rocks him and Alvarez is okay, but the referee jumps in there. So that's always in the back of my head with an Alvarez fight. But if you know the guy, if you realize how tough he is, he's going to recover quick, even if he does get rocked, and he can finish the fight. So I think it's going to be a back and forth war. We're probably going to see it hit the scorecards, and we're going to see like a split decision type of fight, honestly. So as far as value goes, I think it's another dog or pass situation, because it's hard to lay the juice on a coin flip type of fight that is going to be ultra competitive. So I think that there might be some value on Alvarez, to be honest with you.
At what point do you and I, as the betting public, do we finally have to start yelling at the matchmakers for making these fights so competitive? Because this is now the 4th week in a row that the co-main event has been a dog or pass, and it's been very difficult. And I got to be honest with you, with the value that's coming on the main event, I got to think the main event's going to be a dog or pass too, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But it's one of those situations where it's really dog or pass, dog or pass, dog or pass. Is that really because MMA is getting more competitive and the matchmakers are really starting to put these guys together better? Or is it because the situation where the betting public itself, because We know, but most of the betting public doesn't know that the lines are set up for where where the public's going to put their money, not necessarily who's going to win or who's going to lose. Even though in this factor, this is obviously who we think is going to win and who's going to lose. Is it the betting public that's kind of setting this up where it's going to be these things are getting closer, or is it really the fact that these fights are so close? There's just really no way to go anything else other than dog or pass.
A little bit of both. I mean, at times the favorites are a little bit too high because of the betting public, because they think that, oh, this guy, it's a sure win for him. So that's why you're seeing some value on the underdog, because they kind of underestimate the dog at times. In a situation like that, that's really not the case. It's going to be a competitive fight. Most people know that as well. So the matchmaking, you got to credit here. So I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly. You could credit that too. Now, as far as dog or pass situation the last couple weeks, if you look though, last week, I mean, a couple weeks ago, we had both favorites come through. And then last week we had both dogs come through. So we said dog or pass situation. You got to slightly lean towards the favorites as a pick, but as far as betting value, it's the dogs. And last week, if you would have took both dogs, you would have cashed in pretty good. So it is what it is. It's kind of tough. Obviously, it's not easy to pick winners, and and especially when it comes to betting. But in this situation, I think you better rather be safe than sorry. So risking a little bit less for a guy that has potential to pull off the win just as much, almost as the guy that's supposed to win, and you're going to lay juice, I think is the way to go. So Alvarez, a little bit more action there. But as far as a pure pick again, I would lean slightly more towards Melendez, I think, because he does push a little bit of a higher pace. Like you said, he should be able to control the ground a little bit more too. So it's honestly a little bit more of a lean towards Melendez, but not at the betting line. The betting line is definitely a dog or pass.
Okay, well, we're in agreement on this one too, because I'm going to have to get bet on Eddie or not, but I do think that Gilbert wins this fight. But it's not going to be easy. I call it a coin flip as well, and that's why I'm going to leave this one alone. Now let's talk about this main event. I just don't see how Verdum can beat Velasquez. It's just I don't know if I'm buying into the hype, but this line has to be astronomical. I mean, Verdum does not have the game, doesn't have the speed, doesn't have the tenacity. Even though he's great from his back, Velasquez is going to beat the living crap out of him. You look at kind of who they fought coming through. Verdum has beaten Emelianenko, Nogueira, and Hunt, and then Velasquez has beaten Nogueira, Lesnar, and Dos Santos. Now, granted, that 5-round war with Dos Santos, we saw how tough Dos Santos is, but if he has a couple more of those kind of fights, his career is going to end very, very quickly. But to me, am I just being retarded, Nick? Am I buying into the Velasquez hype, or is this really how this fight's going to go?
No, this one is, I think, the opposite situation here. It's not dog or pass. It's actually favorite or pass here. The line's been staying steady. I opened it almost 5-1, and it's staying 5-1. It's minus 500 right now for Kane, plus 400 for Verdum. And you know what? I mean, that might seem a little high because Verdum's skill set is really good. I mean, obviously he's got the BJJ credentials. He's one of the best all time in MMA as far as the jiu-jitsu aspect of the game. He's improved his stand-up drastically. So he is definitely one of the best heavyweights in the world right now. But the problem is, I mean, Cain Velasquez is just head and shoulders above most, I mean, in the heavyweight division. That's why he's the champion. He's a total package. I mean, he has the stand-up. He's one of the best stand-up fighters in the game for sure. I mean, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the fight IQ, he's got the durability overall. I know he got clipped one time, I mean, against JDS, but overall he's been pretty durable. And of course, he's got the wrestling background that he could dictate and control where the fight goes. So Kane is a very amazing fighter that is going to be tough to beat. Honestly, you're going to have to almost just catch him in a lucky type of punch situation, to be honest with you. Maybe in like JDS Kane 1, something similar. If got to beat him, I think it's going to have to be a quick, fluky type thing, because if not, I mean, Kane could just push a high pace. He could knock you out. He could get you out of there. So Verdum, even though I do respect him, he is the interim champion for a reason. I mean, he made his way to the top. Still a bad matchup, because I think Kane beats him on the feet. If Kane wants to, he can take him down. And I think Verdum, even though he is dangerous on the ground, I think Kane, if he's on top, landing some punches and, dishing out some punishment, I don't think he's going to get caught by sub. So I think it is Kane's fight to win or lose. And it is hard for me to take a stab at Verdum at this price, although it is kind of tough to bet 5-1 as well. So I think a lot of people are going to look to put Kane into parlays, and I can understand that. So there might be a little bit of value still on Kane, but 5-1 is a high price to lay.
But honestly, it's the only way to go in this fight. So for me, it's the champ or pass. Like really, and it's just one of those situations that, even though Dana White's come out and said the AKA's training, capabilities and the way they train and the way they cycle their athletes through is antiquated, it might be antiquated, but it's still working for these guys. And for the mentality that all these wrestlers have is go hard, keep going hard, go harder the next day, go harder the next day. And eventually you kind of, the cream rises to the top because you've been battling so hard and for so long. Yes, it affected DC, Daniel Cormier, when he fought John Jones. He had trained so hard, he never recovered in time for the fight. Yes, I forget which fighter got hurt just a little bit ago from up there. And he was he's out from the main event fight, I think coming up here in Las Vegas. There are situations where, yeah, I get it, but that happens in every training camp. No matter how hard you try, it's competitive sport. Someone's going to get hurt. And I do believe, I do lean a little bit with Dana saying that their training tactics are a little antiquated. I do believe that what Dana's saying is correct. I just don't think it matters. I just think it doesn't matter when you talk about Cain Velasquez. It just doesn't matter. He's the biggest guy in the room, strongest guy in the room, quickest guy in the room, hardest working guy in the room. So the chance of him getting hurt more and more often or becoming a lot less because he's getting so much bigger, better, and stronger. Do you agree with me that even though AKA style is antiquated, it still works for a guy like Cain Velasquez?
Yeah, I don't think you should change much up. Obviously, I mean, look at the success of that camp. Now you got Daniel Cormier, also a champion there. Luke Rockhold's fighting for the title soon. As you mentioned, Habib was in a title spot before he did get injured. So you got, yeah, it is what it is with it. I don't think they should change much at all because of I mean, their success is speaking for itself. So I mean, I know that some camps like to fight hard, but like you said, I mean, that's kind of got them to the level where they're at because they're constantly going strong and they're constantly improving their overall game because there's nothing like a real time atmosphere, a real time environment. I mean, once you obviously step in a cage, it's probably a little bit different than it is from practice. You know what I mean? The real time scenario. So the closer you could get to that is the better, I think, for you, for the camp, for everybody. But there is that injury concern for sure. So I can see both sides of it as well. But I wouldn't change anything. I mean, the success that AKA is having, they're one of the best gyms in the world for a reason. So I think they should keep doing what they're doing.
I like it, and the difference, and this is no knock on Winklejohn or Jackson, but like when fighters go to Winklejohn and Jackson, the champs are already the champs, and they come through and become better champs while they're there. Where I think AKA creates champs. They take guys from the very beginning and put them in. That's the only difference. It's not a knock on either program or how either fight group works each other's out. It's just my observation of what's happening. Champs go down to Winklejohn and Jackson's and become better champs, where guys are built to be champions over at AKA. Both systems work. Both systems are coming together for the fighters and for their athletes. And let's be honest, they're right now, still to this date, between them, the Black Zillions and AKA, those are the top 4 teams to be on right now in mixed martial arts throughout the United States of America. That's just what it is. And everyone is going to these spaces. From a betting standpoint, does the factor of the gym that the athlete comes from going to the odds-making decision, like, okay, this champ is from AKA, I have to put part of that process in there, trying to make the odds for these fights?
Yeah, you know what? It's definitely going to factor in. I mean, who you're training with, if you're getting quality training in gyms like that, yeah, definitely. I think you just feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable as a bettor or even as an odds maker. You know that you're getting something quality because you know what that camp has produced. So, not always the same situation, fight by fight or fighter by fighter, but yeah, it definitely has a little bit of an impact. I mean, if a fighter's really training with not good training partners or at an unknown gym that he's probably not getting the work he really needs or, doing things the right way, he's not going to perform as well. So yes, it does have a small impact. I think for the bettors, it does as well. I mean, they're going to be, again, more comfortable laying the price on somebody they know is coming from a top tier gym as the other way around. They're not going to be as confident. They're going to have those question marks about what kind of training is this guy really getting.
So we got to know the result of the Weidman versus Belfort. Belfort obviously comes from Black Zillions, and you're looking at Weidman comes from Serra Longo, which is an outlier. It's an anomaly, really, to have a champ coming from a smaller group like that. Did it make it difficult to pick that fight? Even though we know that Weidman went in there and crushed Vitor. I was there live for that one, which is very appreciative to be sitting there watching that one live. Did it make it harder to pick that one because you're like, well, Weidman's at a smaller camp and it's Vitor, and he's at Black Zillions, and this is what Vitor's been running through. Did it make it a little more difficult trying to make that odd?
Not in that situation because you know what, Sarah and Longo, of course. I mean, they're tremendous trainers as well. So I know that. I mean, even if they might be a smaller camp or whatnot, still, I mean, you got to respect the quality that they're producing, even on a smaller scale. So not really. And then of course Weidman, he's climbed up to the top for a reason. He's been in there with some really good competition. So I think that's a different situation there, and it wouldn't have as much of an impact for sure. But yeah, I mean, it depends on the scenario, to be honest with you. But the Weidman Belfort fight, that didn't come into the equation at all.
Okay, so still a fighter by fighter basis still have to be put in there. Tough job you got, Nick. It's a tough job, and obviously with this co-main event with Alvarez and Melendez, very difficult trying to put this together. We're looking at 2 guys that are not in their prime, but still the very, very top end of the lightweight division, and so it's got to be difficult to pick who's going to do what. Dog or pass on the co-main event. It's the champ or pass on the main event. And unfortunately, you're going to have to put $500 down to get $100 if you're going to bet Cain Velasquez. But let's be honest, I'm kind of okay with it. I'll put a little bit of money down. For me, I'll put down $50 and win 10. I'm kind of okay with it. It's not too bad.
Yeah, more times than not, you should be safe. Like I said, barring that fluke kind of knockout type of thing, I think from Verdum, Kane is just a beast, and a lot of people are looking forward to finally seeing him back in action and seeing him kind of continue to just do what he does best, and that's dominate the heavyweight division.
Well, there you have it. This is the MMA Oddsbreaker Fight Breakdown Show. That's Nick Kalikas. I'm Frank Trigg. We'll see you again next week.